All right, Kentucky, South Carolina. South Carolina is a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under I have is 1, reference to climate versus culture. Yeah. Mark Stoops hates South Carolina. It doesn't matter who's coaching there.
Mark Stoops hates plenty
Muschamp,
of things,
Beamer.
to be honest. Just get in line for Mark Stoops' hatred.
South Carolina is pretty high up on that list. Pretty high up on that list. I can assure you of that. But
the forward pass also on that list.
Yeah, it's not that he hates the forward pass. It's that he struggles when it looks so poorly. And I think it drives him up a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And Kentucky's had far too many moments of that in the last few years in which the forward pass has driven Mark Stoops up a wall. We saw in the Netflix doc, Beamer has this glass drawing board, which College Town, by the way, Columbia, shameless plug, Saturday Down South on YouTube. Check that out. Really, really cool stuff. Columbia got to sit down. Our guy Wes Blankenship got to sit down with Shane Beamer. Hopefully, we'll have Wes on to be able to talk about that soon. And you could see the glass, in the background, this like drawing board or whatever. And so Shane Beamer was showing this off in Any Given Saturday, and on the chair is the T-shirt that read "Culture greater than sign climate" with culture in garnet and climate in blue. And let's just call it what it is. These teams, these coaches, they don't like each other at all. Good. They shouldn't. They're very different people. It's okay that they don't like each other. I don't know why they really hide from it, but nonetheless, I don't like watching Kentucky play football very much these days. But
that should be tax deductible, I feel, in your profession. It's like the time that I've spent watching Kentucky's offense, I should be compensated,
It's charity. It's charity to watch Kentucky football, at least on offense.
On offense. Their defense has been okay.
And we'll say the Kentucky passing game, because their 1-2 punch in the backfield, which I'm going to get to in a second here, is good. It could be one of the better 1-2 backfield punches in the SEC. But the problem is the limiting factors in the passing game. Whether that continues with Cutter Boley in his first SEC road start, that remains to be seen. Let's just say it can't get worse than what we saw under Zach Calzada will. This was the game last year that we realized South Carolina had a special defense. Dylan Stewart was shredding triple teams. I would suggest triple teaming Dylan Stewart again, because that might be the only way that Cutter Boley gets enough time to stretch the field. And stretching the field with Zach Calzada and the Kentucky offense this year, I don't know if the average person, or even if the most diehard Kentucky fan, realizes how bad the numbers were. And this is not a Kentucky offense that faced this gauntlet schedule. Okay. And I realize Cutter Boley started against Eastern Michigan, so we're only talking about those first 3 games here. Or I guess, first 3 games, first 2 games, whatever. Zach Calzada was 3 for 22 on passes 10 yards past the line of scrimmage, which is almost impossible, Will. 3 for 22 on passes 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. DJ Lagway and Arch Manning have been criticized, very rightfully so, for their accuracy issues this season. Lagway is 16 for 37 on those throws, and Arch is 22 for 46. And those are the inaccurate guys. 3 for 22.
That is a level of horrible. And I mean, think about the age difference of these people. Not to make a joke out of it, I was going to say, just give the guy a couple more years. But it's like, brother, like, again, riding lawnmower territory. Like, he knows all about fertilizing in the autumn times. Like, you aren't going to get better than that. I understand making the switch, but it's like, man, on last pod was like, they got to, push the ball down the field at Florida. It's like, at Kentucky, it's like, they're not trying and it's not working. It's impressive, actually, that they're that much worse than everyone else.
So bad. 3 for 22 is inexplicable. It's like
against lesser competition. To your point, it's not like they're playing, the Alabamas and the Georgias right now. It's like, this is when you should be really inflating your stats, and they'll come down later in the year.
Yeah, and I think he only had 1 drop in those, so the adjusted completion percentage is a tiny bit better. But oh my gosh, I mean, it was just hard to watch. If you're Kentucky, you are hoping and praying that you can follow the Mizzou game plan against South Carolina. Lean on that ground game. Hope that a new look South Carolina front 7, which has had some issues so far, hope that it can't shed blocks. And then you turn in this rushing performance in which you look up and you're like, oh my God, we had 250 rushing yards. McGowan and Dowdell, who have been really good for Kentucky so far, like those guys are hopefully going to be the driving force behind a low scoring victory. I don't know that everyone can just replicate what Mizzou has on offense. We sung their praises on Sunday. I feel really good about what they had been able to show. And I don't know that Kentucky can just automatically copy that game plan as much as they would like to.
But hey, now it's time to say one nice thing about Kentucky. If any team in the SEC can just lean forward and run the ball, Kentucky can do it. Now, the threat of Bo Perbula makes some of that possible. Maybe the talent level is a little bit different at Mizzou, but at least they have the commitment and the scheme to run the ball.
They have guys that can run through contact, which is good. Seth McGowan's a really nice player. He's a really nice player, and he's not going to be one of these guys. If Kentucky ends up 4-8 this season, he's not going to be one of these guys that's talked about nationally or anything like that. And he could be one of these guys that has just an all SEC worthy season that does not get any attention whatsoever. I think that if you're trying to find what's the most inevitable thing in this game, I can't picture South Carolina starting off SEC play 0-3 with losses to Vandy, Mizzou, and Kentucky. We could talk about South Carolina not being able to live up to the preseason hype and not being able to pick up where they left off last year. But 0-3 to start SEC play against those teams, I don't think Shane Beamer allows that to happen. They find a way to win 21-17. So Kentucky covers the 6.5 point spread, but South Carolina wins a low scoring, grind it out sort of game.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that honestly, if South Carolina doesn't cover, they're in massive trouble to me. To your point, this is a game that they roundly, controlled last year after struggling against Old Dominion and being like, okay, now we actually have something here. Dylan Stewart breakout and all that stuff. Like they had so much to like about last year. Like to your point, the defense came on. So I think it's time to find those people. It's time to say, yeah, okay, we know we got Dylan Stewart, but let's replace the other guys, kind of like we just talked about with Auburn, which is why I alluded to South Carolina, because I think South Carolina hasn't been able to do that, and Auburn has, where they have the one guy. And Auburn's been able to activate the other guys by capitalizing on kind of the double teams, the attention paid to Keldrick Falk. But point being, yeah, I mean, again, it takes very little to stop this Kentucky. I mean, a stiff breeze to stop this Kentucky passing game. If you can't do that and play dominant, like shut down, smash mouth football the way that Shane Beamer loves to, you don't even really need the special teams in this one. Like you need to establish the number one, the run game, right? You talk about Faison and those boys, like how that hasn't exactly worked out for them. I think they really need to say, I don't care about the opponent. I'm going to play my game. I'm going to establish my game plan. Even if it doesn't work, we're going to do it because we're going to need that later in the season. This isn't about this game. To me, it's like anything but covering is a failure by South Carolina because we had high expectations. And I just said that in the last segment. It's like, I'm still not willing to say they're a bad team. I'm willing to say they struggled a lot. But even if I was a little bit lower on them than most people, I didn't see this to start the year, exactly to your point. So, like, let's get it together. Let's be the team that we South Carolina lovers expected.
This is going to sound like it's defending Mike Shula and the play calling so far at South Carolina, and it's not. It's just trying to get inside what has plagued them so far and why it feels like their only big-time offensive plays are spectacular, ridiculous, highlight reel plays. I think there's a certain part of a psyche of a coordinator that sees your offensive line like not getting much push and it's a 1 yard gain or a 2 yard gain, or maybe you get stopped in the backfield. And then you think to yourself, why am I not putting the ball in the hands of my best player who is so much better than anything that I have going in my backfield right now? And that's why the desire to ditch the run game and turn to Lenora Sellers, who has the ability to make these spectacular plays. That's why this has not necessarily allowed their ground game to get into rhythm. And I'm not saying that they all of a sudden would be getting into rhythm if their running backs are getting 25 combined carries in a game or something like that. But I think that there is a little bit of that's been working against South Carolina, odd as that might sound. And it's tough to sit there and justify taking the ball out of Lenora Sellers' hands when you know what he's capable of in a given drop back. They obviously need to get more offense going than just spectacular plays via Lenora Sellers, or else South Carolina is only going to go as far as he can take them. And there's just only so much you can do with that. But it would help if they can stop the run. They need to be able to do that against Kentucky.
Yes, and I fully agree with you, and I'm seeing that as well. And I would say I think you're right on the money there, so I'm not disagreeing with you, but I would say this counterpoint of that's assuming Lenora Sellers has been healthy, right? And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, we talked about this kind of in week 1 with Bo Prabula, where it's like, hey, dog, you don't need to run the ball right now. You need to run the ball deep in the SEC play when guys are getting hurt and like the grind of the schedule is really hitting. So I would argue that actually against Kentucky, like, yeah, let's get that 25, 30 combined carries. Let's see very few Lenore Sellers carries, because you should not, if you need him to beat Kentucky to play spectacular the way that you have to go this year, you need to figure something else out, period. So I think even if you're averaging 2 yards a carry, I mean, I know sacks are taken into account, but Lenore Sellers is not an easy guy to bring down. He only has 17 rushing yards this year when you factor in sacks. That's rough. So let's just
take some deep sacks.
He does.
Which definitely hurts him in that regard.
He does, but you know what I'm saying? Like, let's get that number to 0. You know, like in terms of like, I don't want him running the ball. I don't want him taking sacks. I want him handing the ball off, going through his progressions, learning this offense. Because we saw it took, honestly, a year and some change for him to get this Dowell login system down. And when he did, it was the back half of the year. You know, it was against A&M. It was in these games where it's like, oh, wait, no, he sees everyone now. He sees his reads. He's going through his progression. And he hasn't been able to do that yet. So I think this is a game, like I said, forget the opponent. Like, truly pretend they're not there and just run your game plan, because you're so right. They're going for the empty calories. They're seeing the cake in the fridge and going, I'm hungry for cake, where it's like, you need to eat your veggies, bro. Like, Kentucky is where you eat your veggies and get your stuff figured out.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how much he wants to scramble in this one, because they very clearly did not want to run football with him a week removed from that concussion. And I think there is certainly a desire to want to make sure that he's, not putting himself in harm's way. They know how important he is to their level of success. I was looking up scramble yards here, because I think with Sellers, it's an important part of his game to need to be able to have at his disposal. It just hasn't been there this year. Like, he's tied for 10th among SEC quarterbacks with 8 scrambles. It's pretty low. He's only got 53 scramble yards on the season, which like you would not expect. That's 10th, also 10th in the SEC among quarterbacks. It's a dangerous part of their game if they can get it going and if they feel like that's important. But also, what does it say if he has to scramble in those spots and if that's the way that he's making plays? So a lot of different moving parts at play for South Carolina, but maybe Kentucky can be their get right game.